Hello everyone, this is Kat. Welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Hidden Messages. It'll be Part 14, Chapter 14, entitled Prep Time. Izuku continued to fake cry as Katsuki just left the main area, followed by Kirishima and a few others. Just like he expected, as soon as they were gone, Uraraka came running up to him. "Deku, are you okay? What was that about?" Uraraka got right up in his personal space. "I'm okay, I guess. I need to find some other people to work with, though." Izuku smiled, but he made sure that it didn't reach his eyes, still making sure to act upset. "Look no further. I'd be honored to work with you on this assignment, and I'm sure many others feel the same," Ida announced. "Yeah, we can all work together as groups." And Uraraka fist-bumped and started leading them toward one of the rooms away from the rest of the students. As they walked, Izuku was hit with guilt about what he was doing, but he remembered his reasoning and pushed it aside. He told Katsuki that he was trying to destroy his competition, which was absolutely true, but he didn't tell him why. Although he had seemingly fixed things with his friends, it didn't really feel like it. Uraraka had gotten extremely protective over him, and the rest of the group had followed her lead. After everything that he had done, all the villains he had beaten, they recently had started to think that he couldn't handle his own fights. They were constantly stepping in during training, claiming that they didn't want him breaking any more bones. Uraraka had more than once tried to get between him and Katsuki, going as far as attacking Katsuki for calling Izuku any sort of negative nickname, even though they were always nicer than anything he'd ever called anyone else. Izuku knew that his friends had good intentions, but as a hero student, it was a bit insulting. Izuku wanted to really show that he wasn't as innocent or as helpless as they seemed to think he was, and what better way of doing that than by playing into what they thought of him, and then destroying that notion. Shinzo was the only person in his group of friends that seemed to think that Izuku was capable of handling anything on his own, so he felt a bit guilty about tricking him as well, but he also knew that out of anyone, Shinzo was likely the most to understand and forgive him. Once they were away from the rest of the students, Izuku looked up to see who had joined their group. Joining him, Ida and Uraraka were Sue, Todoroki, and Shinzo. He knew it wouldn't be enough to succeed. He knew, at least, he needed to get some information from someone in Class B. They all looked at each other for a moment. Obviously, no one really knew where to start with their strategy. Izuku finally broke the silence. "Why don't we start with figuring out how we want to communicate? If we talk openly, we might end up accidentally helping other people." "Right, that is a solid point." Ida chopped through the air with his hands as he spoke. "Does anyone have any ideas?" "Well, let's start by seeing if there's any common languages that we all know. I know JSL, ASL, English, Spanish, and French. Most of those might all be a bit too common to be super effective, but we can use a base code off of that or something." "Wow, when Bakugo said that you were good with languages, I didn't think that he meant that you knew so many." Ida looked impressed. "I unfortunately don't know any other languages, unless you count Morse code. I do know that." "Oh, if we're counting Morse code, then I know that too," Izuku spoke up again. "I know Morse code as well," Todoroki chimed in. "I know a little Morse code," Uraraka said. "I don't know any other languages," Ribbit. "I know JSL, ASL, and Morse code," Shinzo spoke up while looking at Izuku. "Since the most common language between us is Morse code, why don't we make a different version of it to use?" Izuku took charge when no one else was speaking. "We can use something similar to what Todoroki and I did for the second assignment," Ida supplied. "Perfect." Izuku cheered. Ida and Todoroki started explaining Morse code to the people that were unfamiliar with it, but Izuku stopped paying attention to them. Shinzo had been trying to get his attention while they were talking, and now the other boy was signing using ASL. "You and Bakugo are still working together, aren't you?" Shinzo got straight to the point. When Izuku didn't respond, he continued. "It's cool if you are. I just want to be in on it." "What do you mean?" Izuku was confused about what Shinzo stood to gain from this. "I mean, I want to be an actual ally to you. You obviously have some sort of plan, otherwise you wouldn't have done that whole act, and I want to help. Instead of you and Bakugo against everyone, what about you, Bakugo, Denki, and I?" Izuku's eyebrows shot up. "Denki?" "Well, yeah, I'm not stupid enough to think that I would be either of your top allies, and Denki and I already agreed to work together." "Since when are you two on a first-name basis?" Shinzo's face reddened. "We have gotten pretty close recently." Izuku fought the urge to tease him. "I'll run it past Kachan, but an extra ally or two is not a bad idea." Izuku was actually relieved that Shinzo saw through their ruse. It meant he didn't have to lie to the one person in his friend group that hadn't started to treat him like glass. Shinzo nodded, and they both turned their attention back to the conversation everyone else was having. Apparently, they had decided to use Morse code, but shifted 5 letters. Izuku took no time at all figuring out how to translate it. He was really good with languages, but many other people were struggling. He pulled out a notebook that he always kept on him and quickly made some cheat sheets for normal Morse code for them to use. As he passed them out, he explained how to use them and to translate. This is normal Morse code. To translate our version, just look at 5 letters from the one that you want. Why couldn't you just make us a cheat sheet of the translated version? Uraraka looked at the paper in confusion. If I did that, all someone would need to understand us is to get a hold of this paper. Now they need this paper, and they need to know how many to shift. In the second exam, Kachan... Izuku trailed off, trying to look as upset at the memory as he could before bringing himself back to focus. Kachan figured out Sue and Mina's messages because Mina left her cheat sheet in the room. That's how you guys figured it out. Sue threw her hands up. Ribbit, I thought you had just guessed somehow. Izuku sheepishly spoke up. I probably would have figured it out if I hadn't been too busy figuring out Ida and Todoroki's messages. Him having the cheat sheet definitely made it easier, though. Todoroki looked thoughtful for a moment before he spoke up. Is that why he said that he wouldn't be giving you the answers this time? He figured out other people's messages and shared them with you? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, kinda. How did you manage to convince him to do that if he's so against working with you? Ida interrupted. I figured out when we were little that if you ever want Kachan to do something, make it a competition. We were competing to see who would figure out the most messages. Izuku shrugged. I never won, but I was able to get really good scores. Izuku made himself look guilty. Normally I would never condone that sort of behavior. However, after hearing what Bakugo has said a few minutes ago, I can't hold it against you. Ida spoke while chopping his hands like usual. There is one thing that confuses me, Ribbit. Bakugo claims to hate you, and you claim to have been using him, yet you managed to get the highest scores ever. Ribbit, something just isn't adding up here. Sue rubbed her chin thoughtfully. Izuku sighed. We have a really long and complicated history. Our moms are best friends, so we met when we were just babies. We were best friends for a while, but... Izuku let a tear fall. When we were 4, Kachan got an incredible quirk, and I didn't get one. He was so powerful and amazing, and I was weak. Izuku sniffled. I let him down. We couldn't be the best heroes together when I was quirkless. But you have a quirk? Multiple people questioned him at once. Yeah, Izuku smiled weakly. I was a late bloomer. I went years without one. I was the quirkless weakling, and Kachan made sure that I knew it. He beat me down daily for it. Izuku huffed. I thought at UA, with a quirk, I could finally be Kachan's friend again, his equal. I wanted to work with him because we knew each other. Even during the years of him hating me, we still had to spend a lot of time together. We've always been classmates, and like I said, our moms are best friends. He agreed to work with me because of that, because we could actually get some great scores. But I took him agreeing to be my partner as wanting to be friends again. Apparently I was wrong. Izuku let tears fall faster now, on the verge of sobbing. He was my first friend before UA, the only friend I had before UA, but he hates me. Izuku broke down sobbing while looking at the ground, hugging his arms around himself. Izuku stole a glance at his friends, and he realized that he was way too good of an actor. Many of his friends had tears in their eyes from his sob story. Those who didn't looked like they were about to kill. Izuku had spent years acting like this, so it was no surprise that he was convincing, but he was still impressed with himself. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill Bakugo. Thank God this is an exercise where we're supposed to kill people, because I'm going to kill Bakugo. Uraraka was fired up. Wait. Izuku sniffled a few times and stopped sobbing, still letting the tears fall. Please, I want to be the one that kills Kachan. Uraraka paused to size him up. Okay, if you're sure about it, but Deku, are you going to be able to do it? I mean, after everything? You still call him Kachan. Izuku looked up at his friends, his hesitant expressions, and he sighed. That's more of a habit than anything else. I've never called him anything but it. Izuku paused for a moment and clenched his fist, finally letting his tears dry as he looked up determined. But you're right. I can't hold on to our past forever. That's why I have to be the one to kill Bakugo. The whole group cheered for a moment, before bringing the attention back to the task at hand. Okay, so we know that Midori is going to remove Bakugo. What should our other goals be? We should probably try to work with at least one person in Class B, right? Just so that if anyone in Class B has any of our hints, we might be able to just get some help. Ida brought up. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Do any of you know anyone in Class B? Izuku asked. After a moment of silence, Izuku answered his own question. No one. Huh. This is going to be more difficult than I thought. The rest of the group brainstormed different ways that they could get someone from Class B to work with them, but again, Izuku was distracted by Shinso. That was one hell of an act there. I was a bit skeptical when you said that you had your old school fooled, but I almost believed you, and I know more about what your relationship is actually like. Thanks, I've had plenty of practice. They both laughed at that, and then frantically looked around to make sure that no one else had noticed. Luckily, the rest of the group was invested in their own conversation. Hey, how do you think that Bakugo will react to you not calling him Kachan? Izuku froze. He can't hear that. He can't hear me call him by his last name. Izuku almost panicked at the thought of Katsuki hearing him. Okay, why? Shinso looked confused. When we were younger, we said that if either of us ever called the other by their last name, that meant our friendship was over. There's no coming back from that. He can't hear me call him Bakugo. Okay, damn, how are you going to avoid that? I have no idea. Good, glad to see you have a plan. Shinso teased him. Izuku was going to respond, but before he could, Aizawa's voice had rang out. It's been half an hour. Everyone please report back to the entrance. Izuku led his group to where the teachers were standing. Although he really wanted to sit near Katsuki, he forced himself to keep up the act and sit as far from him as possible. That didn't stop him from starting a silent conversation with him, though. Hey, Kachan, how's it going? Fuck, Deku, did you have to cry so damn much? I had to spend half the damn time convincing my extras that I'm not a heartless monster. Sorry, Kachan, did they at least believe that we aren't working together? Pinky and Tapeface were convinced, but Pikachu keeps making weird faces at me and Shitty Hair pulled me aside to ask me to let him in on the real plan. Oh yeah, Shinso did the same. He and Kaminari are working together and they want to be included in our real plan too. That's probably why he was making weird faces. Their conversation was interrupted for a moment as they each went up and got their note card with the information on it. Izuku looked over his note card quickly. He had to find the light bulb, item number 24, and he had the clue for item number 21, the bracelet. He blanched when he saw the task. He knew that they were supposed to kill each other, but it was still shocking to see that his task was to stab someone. What the fuck? My fucking task is to have a gun to my head or a knife to my throat and survive. How the fuck do I do that? Katsuki was quick to start the conversation back up again. Wow, I wasn't really happy with my task, but now I heard yours, and I would much rather stab someone than have to somehow survive that. You have to fucking stab someone? Damn, they really aren't messing around with this, are they? Yeah. Izuku started to respond, but he realized that he didn't really have much time for conversation because they would have to separate again soon. Quick, we don't have much time. I need to find the light bulb, which has item number 24, and I have the clue for the bracelet, item 21. What about you? I need to find an ornament, item 33. I have the hint for the pendant for item 34. Okay. Izuku started to walk away with his group, but before he got too far, he remembered something else he needed to tell Katsuki. Oh, I almost forgot. Be careful. I managed to convince the people I'm working with that I want to be the one to kill you, but they're all pretty pissed at you right now. What the fuck, Deku? Sorry, I had to convince them that we aren't working together, so I used some of our cover from middle school. Shit, okay. Izuku walked off with his group, but as he went, he tried to see as many papers as he could. He saw a few, and he did his best to remember what was written, but he didn't see anything that would help him or Katsuki. He saw Hagekuri's paper, but felt a little bad about it. Being invisible gave her really limited options to hide things that she was carrying. She had the clue for Object 27, the person's statue, and she was looking for Object 19, the ring. Izuku made a note in his notebook of her clue, but he didn't expect to need it. He wasn't going to go after a statue, but he didn't know what the object looked like or how big it is. Statues are usually pretty heavy. It took some maneuvering, but he managed to catch a glimpse of a few of Class B's papers. He managed to see Komori's paper that said that she needed to find Object 38, the stickers, and she had the clue for Object 16, the mask. He also managed to see Reen's paper, and he struggled to hide his laughter. He needed to find Object 27, and he had the clue for Object 19. In other words, if Hagekuri and Reen just traded information, they would be set. However, Object 19, the ring, is tempting to go after. It's small enough that Izuku could realistically carry it around without issue. He made sure to make notes of all the information he figured out, even if he didn't think it would be very helpful. As he wrote, he could see a few people craning their necks to try to see his notes. Their expressions all changed to confusion, and Izuku held back a grin. Like usual, he wrote entirely in code. There was no way that anyone understood what was being written. As soon as Izuku was back with his group, he got their attention. Their time was limited. They couldn't waste it. Using their adjusted Morse code, Izuku asked, "What was written on your papers?" "I need to find the flower, and I have the hint for the orange." Ida was slowly using Morse code to tell everyone what was written on the card while showing it. He looked concerned when he noticed Izuku writing. "Why are you writing this down? I have the card here." Oh, sorry, I should have explained. We are going to need to get the clues from other people in both classes to find out all of the objects. The best way to do that might be to trade clues. I was going to suggest that we split up a few minutes and try and get more information. I'm taking some notes that I can keep track of who knows what. Don't worry, I'm the only one that can read it. Izuku grinned his most innocent smile. Ida seemed to take his word for it, and as did everyone else except for Shinso, who just squinted at him. Well, I don't know how to be helpful. That information will be for anyone else, though. I'm looking for the orange. Shinso held up his own card to show that the object he was looking for was in fact Object 30, the orange. I have the clue for the blue flag, if that helps anyone, Shinso offered. Everyone was silent for a moment until Sue spoke up. I don't need to find the blue flag, but I do have the clue for the green flag. I need to find the tiger figurine. Izuku's hand flew across the page as Sue showed her card. I also have a clue for a flag, although my clue is for the purple one. I need to find the umbrella. Todoroki showed his card next. I don't have anything about flags, but I need to find the trophy, and I have the clue for the green coin. Uraraka pulled out a card to show the group. As soon as Izuku finished writing, he looked up to find his friends now staring at him, obviously waiting for him to share his card. Oh, sorry, I actually destroyed my card after I wrote down the information that was on it. Izuku shrugged sheepishly while speaking normally. Can't be too careful, right? Izuku smiled nervously. I can still tell you the information that was on it, though. Izuku continued, quickly switching to the adjusted Morse code. I'm looking for Object 24, the light bulb, and I have the clue for the bracelet, Object 21. It's located at the corner of Apple and 6th. Izuku could feel the weight of the intact note in his pocket as he lied to them. His first task once he got away from them would probably be to actually destroy it, and make a note of the lie that he told. Why would you destroy it? Are you really worried that someone else would see it? Todoroki tilted his head in confusion, not bothering to use Morse code. Yeah, it's an easy way to figure things out without having to do too much work. That's how Bakugo figured out some of the messages from previous assignments. People didn't hide their papers on their desks, and it was easy to look over and see the messages. You keep mentioning that Bakugo figured out messages. Ribbit, did you figure out any, or was it just him? Sue looked at Izuku questioningly. Izuku scratched the back of his neck. Oh, well, I figured out some, like the Morse code messages, but not much else. He really did most of the work. Izuku shrugged. Izuku was a little hurt that no one seemed to question anything he said. Of course, it was nice that his friends trusted him so much, although that did make him feel a bit guilty. But the fact that even knowing him for so long as they had, and after he had told them some of the contents of his analysis notebooks, they still believed that he barely helped at all in the assignment, that was practically made for him? After seeing him stand up and fight for his friends and the people around him, they really think that Katsuki would be able to just walk all over him. Izuku pushed that line of thinking to the back of his mind and focused on the task at hand. They really couldn't do much else in their group. It was time for them to split up and see what information they could learn. The teachers were bored in the control room. They watched through the cameras as students began to create plans. The most interesting thing that happened was Bakugo trying to explain away what just happened, but that was pretty boring as well, until they heard an interesting line of questioning in Midoriya's group. Is that why he said he wouldn't be giving you the answers this time? He figured out that other people's messages, what they were, and shared them with you. Todoroki's voice sounded slightly tiny through the speakers, but it caught their attention all the same. The teachers remained silent as the conversation continued, and Midoriya told his sob story. Only once their conversation drifted back to the assignment did anyone say anything. I thought you said they were fine. All Might again looked heartbroken. A tear had escaped as Midoriya was talking. They are, Nezu grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. I must admit that I don't know them that well, but that doesn't sound fine to me. Vlad King looked between Nezu, Aizawa, and the screen. As I said, they have a very complicated past. That was their cover story throughout middle school. Midoriya was the quirkless victim, while Bakugo was the powerful bully. From what we can gather, that isn't actually the case, not even close to it. They had to act like that in order to survive their school. All Might shot up from his chair, yelling, "Survive!" He was obviously angered at what Aizawa had said. Aizawa just put his hand out to stop the former symbol of peace and continued talking. Don't worry, I'm already in the process of making a case against their old school. They will not get away with what happened. All Might sat back down, somewhat reluctantly, and Nezu clapped his hands. Yes, they do have an interesting history, but that doesn't tell us why they would bring up that false story now. Nezu grinned. This should be an interesting exercise. Nezu jumped off the chair that he was in and climbed into Aizawa's scarf. Now, I believe that the first half of their prep time is over. They should be getting their note cards about now. The teachers made their way out of the control room and called the students over. They made quick work of handing out the note cards and then quickly returned to the control room. As they watched the cameras to see the students leave the main room, they were a little disappointed that the majority of the students didn't look up from their own note cards. They had handed them out in a group like that, hoping that some students would look around and sneak peeks at other people's clues, but it seemed like only Bakugo and Midoriya were doing that. Nezu made a sort of gleeful snort when he noticed that Izuku was writing in his notebook in code, but he remained silent, not wanting to miss when the scheming would continue. As expected, all the groups immediately regrouped to share what their note cards had said, and the teachers quickly got bored again. The one group that they were expecting to be interesting was switching between normal talking and Morse code, so they weren't that interesting to watch, but Nezu must have caught something, because he just started cackling. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 14 of Hidden Messages. Chapter 15 will be next. I hope you guys are still enjoying this one, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.